All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Thank you. Please, people, we have a show to do. Please, get a hold of yourselves. Thank you. I'm overwhelmed by your recorded generosity. Another great day in the world of our program. You will not be disappointed. Kim is here. Many
Kim,
of
how are
you
you?
have always written to me, you pounded on me. Kim, is she going to make it? Is she going to be here? Yes.
Kim, how are you?
She is here. And Tony, equally popular with the kids. The kids love Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
And Tony is here. Yeah. Tony, who tracks down all the video for us and does a lot of stuff to kind of make this show run technically. Thank you, Tony, in advance for a great program. Today, Gary Dietrich, bottom of the hour. We'll talk a little bit about what's happening as we close in on the deadline for the election. There's already voting going on in many states, as you know, mail-in voting and the like. And the changing discourse in America, and of course the vice presidential debate, which is tomorrow night. So if you have any thoughts on any of that, please share it in the chat. One of the things that's cool is the hair is like, we have a community of people who contribute to a conversation, and that happens in our chat live. We're a live show on every day, Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Time, and it is 11 to 1 in our darling and beloved West Coast time zone. And many of the people who populate our chat are in California, which is really, really cool. So we keep the California conversations going. There's a lot going on in California, and I'll tell you the truth. A lot of what we talk about on the show during this heated political season is sort of hijacked by that politics. Once we get past the election, I would like to talk about some of the things that are affecting California that are also affecting other parts of the country. I just feel as though California can oftentimes be cutting edge in terms of political policy, strategy, environmental policy, environmental strategy. There are a lot of things that we face in California that I think are applicable to other parts of the country. So I'm looking forward to getting past the intensity of the political season and onto that as well. We are a crowd-funded show. We love our crowd. Smash it like
Smash it
boss.
with your iron rod.
And there is also a... I heard an echo. I'm always wondering if that's... I don't know what that comes from. Tony, have any thoughts on an echo? Well, if it gets to be an issue, we'll mention it.
I have an idea.
Okay.
Is it still there?
No, it's not. Thank you. So it means it
Sorry,
was.
Kim.
It's Kim's fault. Oh, I see.
It was
I was
me?
going to blame. I was going to blame
Just your
Tony.
headphones.
Thanks, Tony.
That's what it
Yeah.
is. It's just the headphones
just
bleed through.
No.
It's just
I blame
headphones
you.
bleeding through
Okay.
is all
Well,
it is.
I'm sure it's my fault somehow. But
I'll
anyway,
mute myself.
I'll mute myself is definitely a drop. And I did get new drops from Trevor Starr in Hollywood. I'll share them with you. If not later today, definitely tomorrow. They just arrived this morning, so that's why I haven't had a chance to turn them around. We've got a lot to get to. I mentioned Gary Dietrich, True Crime Corner with Courtney. There's a guest today, a former prosecutor who has written a murder mystery book. Really fascinating. So I think you'll enjoy that as well. So much to do, and now
The Mark Thompson Show.
I'll get into, and I'll check the emails as well. I'll share a couple with you as we get going. There were some notable passings over the weekend, and I think even on Friday. I don't know when Maggie Smith passed away. I feel as though it was Friday maybe, but more to the point, these are very high-profile passings, and I wonder if I can turn to Kim to, yeah.
I think we talked about Maggie Smith on Friday.
Oh, we did? So that
We
was,
did.
okay. So Maggie Smith is still dead?
She has.
Just
She's
to update.
remains.
Okay. All
She
right.
remains passed away.
All right.
What?
I'm sorry. I just had to. I had already introed it. I had to do something with it.
You
So
know who
that's the
died
update.
You know who died over the weekend though is Kris Kristofferson.
Yeah. That's
88
really
years
remarkable.
old. Yeah.
By the way,
songwriter.
if I told you Maggie Smith and Kris Kristofferson both passed away within 24 hours of each other, who would you say is older? Were they roughly the same age, or would you say they're... Maggie Smith, I think, reads older.
I would have said her, yeah.
Yeah, our image of Kris Kristofferson is just a younger image. They were just a year apart.
Wow.
He was 88, she was 89. Anyway, continue with Kris Kristofferson. There she is, yeah.
It felt like she was still doing things though, that the image of her older face was still, widely available in movies and on TV. Whereas I don't know, he had hit music and music that we still listen to, but I don't think he was touring or I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen him in a long time. So
No, I think you're right. The image we have of him is as a younger guy.
Yeah.
He really didn't have a lot of hits. He had, I think, as a songwriter. Well, I'll leave it to you. You can tell me. I think he wrote Me and Bobby McGee, did he? Or isn't that right?
Well, he wrote a lot of things. I'm looking at a couple of different stories. I think I spelled his name wrong too. It's with K. It's Kris Kristofferson.
Yeah, with a K, right.
Yeah, I could tell you he's 88. He died at his home in Maui. So, if you got to go, Maui's a nice place to go. They didn't give a cause of death, but he passed away on Saturday at his home in Maui. His family was with him. They say they're blessed for their time with him. Thank you for loving him all these years. And when you see a rainbow, you know that he's smiling down at everyone. So here are some of his songs. Me and Bobby McGee, he wrote,
right,
that Janis Joplin sang, For the Good Times. Sunday Morning Coming Down. Loving Her Was Easier Than Anything I'll Ever Do Again. A lot of these songs were made famous by other artists.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying, that
yeah.
he wrote a lot that went on to be in the American songbook, but he didn't record a lot of hits. I mean, Me and Bobby McGee was the thing that really
Janis
punched
Joplin.
through. Yeah, was the thing that punched through, but Janis Joplin made it famous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. He lived in San Mateo for a while. I didn't know that about him, and graduated from San Mateo High School. So San Mateo people probably knew that.
I'll tell you what is the pride of San Mateo High School. San Mateo is a community just south of San Francisco.
Tom Brady?
That relates to Kris Kristofferson. No, Kris Kristofferson was a Rhodes Scholar. This guy, Kris Kristofferson, who had this kind of country, rough charisma, he was a really smart guy. And again, brilliant talent. There he is with Barbra Streisand. It was the remake of A Star Is Born that he did with her. And I'm just reading here, Kristofferson could recite William Blake from memory, wove intricate folk music lyrics about loneliness and tender romance into popular country music. With his long hair and bell-bottom slacks and counterculture songs, influenced Bob Dylan, he represented a new breed of country songwriters along with such peers as Willie Nelson, John Prine, and Tom T. Hall. There's no better songwriter alive than Kris Kristofferson, Willie Nelson said. Everything he writes is a standard, and we all just going to have to live with that. As an actor, he played the leading man, as I say, opposite Barbra Streisand and Ellen Burstyn. But he liked Westerns, and he liked cowboy dramas. I mean, you can see how that kind of played into his natural look and his sound. He was a Golden Gloves boxer and football player in college. Got a master's degree in English from Merton College at the University of Oxford in England. Turned down an appointment to teach at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point.
Wow.
He turned that down to pursue songwriting in Nashville, hoping to break into that industry. worked as a part-time janitor at Columbia Records. And in 1966, when Dylan recorded tracks for the Blonde on Blonde double album, Khris Christopherson was working as a janitor at the same studio. Johnny Cash liked to tell a mostly exaggerated story of how Khris Christopherson, a former U.S. Army pilot, landed a helicopter on Johnny Cash's lawn to give him a tape of Sunday Morning Coming Down with a beer in one hand and the tape in the other. Over the years, in interviews, Christopherson said, with all respect to Cash, while he did land a helicopter at Johnny Cash's house, Johnny Cash wasn't even home at the time, and the demo tape was a song that no one ever actually cut, and he certainly couldn't fly a helicopter holding a beer, he said. But he did say he might not have had a career without Johnny Cash. Christopherson said, shaking his hand when I was still in the Army backstage at the Grand Ole Opry was the moment I decided I'd come back. It was electric, he says. He kind of took me under his wing before he cut any of my songs. He cut my first record. That was the record of the year. He put me on stage the first time. One of the most recorded songs, of course, that Khris Christopherson did was Me and Bobby McGee. We mentioned it. Mm-hmm. And it was, there's an interesting story around Me and Bobby McGee quickly. It was written based on a recommendation from Monument Records founder Fred Foster. Foster had a song title in his head called Me and Bobby McGee, named after a female secretary in his building. Christopherson said that he was inspired to write the lyrics about a man and a woman on the road together after watching the Federico Fellini film La Strada. So that's where it came from. Janis Joplin, who had a close relationship with Khris Christopherson, changed the lyrics to make Bobby McGee a man and cut her version just days before she died in 1970.
Wow.
She died of a drug overdose. And it became number one on all music charts. In any case, he married fellow songwriter Rita Coolidge. Together they had a successful duet career, got 2 Grammy Awards together. They divorced in 1980, and he retired from performing and recording in 2021, only made occasional guest appearances on stage. To your point, Kim, Maggie Smith, a little more active in the last couple of years, Khris Christopherson having pulled away from it. Khris Christopherson, singer, songwriter, actor, and brilliant man, apparently, dead at 88. High profile, there they are, Rita Coolidge and Khris Christopherson. High profile passing of a young man, relatively. Dikembe Mutombo passed away. He just died this morning. Brain cancer was the cause. A brilliant basketball player. I mean, incredible shot blocker. And he was inducted into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame in 2015, an 8-time NBA All-Star. Won the league's Defensive Player of the Year award 4 times. His defensive prowess leading the league in blocks for 5 consecutive seasons during an 18-year playing career and retiring second on the NBA's all-time block shots list was offset, they say, by his playful smile. He had kind of an aspect to his personality that was very light, you know. He was born in the Democratic Republic of Congo, 7'2".
Wow.
Came to Georgetown University in Washington on an academic scholarship in 1987. Then he joined the basketball team in his second year at Georgetown, and it was selected 4th in the 1991 NBA draft by the Denver Nuggets. He played for the Hawks, the Nuggets, the Sixers, then the New Jersey Nets, also the New York Knicks, the Houston Rockets. He did a lot of humanitarian work, Kim. You would have loved him. He established the Dikembe Mutombo Foundation, a mission to improve education and quality of life in his native Democratic Republic of Congo.
He was only 58.
Yeah, that's why I say relatively young. He had a brain tumor diagnosed in 2022 in Atlanta, and he's just passed away today. So,
Tony was
sad.
telling me earlier that he's known for that finger wag move that he's doing.
Oh, there you go. Oh, that's so cool. Oh, that's really great. Yeah, and look, Tony's got the commercial running where the finger wag is there. That's really great, Tony. Good grab. Really good grab.
7'2". Wow.
They say he was even better off the court. Is a quote from many. The general manager, Daryl Morey, the Sixers general manager, said, there aren't many guys like him, just a great human being. When I was a rookie general manager in this league, my first chance in Houston, he was someone I went to all the time. He was older than me, which is pretty rare. Obviously, his accomplishments on the court, we don't need to talk about too much. Just an amazing human being, though, what he did off the court for Africa. Rest in peace, Dikembe.
Oh, sad that he's gone.
Really sad.
He had a really beautiful smile.
Yeah, and that was something else that was spoken of a lot. How good people like Dikembe Mutombo die young like this is something I will always wrestle with, while those who don't do much good in the world live on. But sad loss. Dikembe Mutombo, 58 years of age.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Well, there is other news, much in the way of politics, much in the way of follow-up to some stories from last week. One of the things I would follow up with you on is related to J.D. Vance. You know, he has the big debate tomorrow night. Walz and Vance. It's scheduled for 11 rounds. What time does it start, Kim? I think it starts at 5, is it? Or on the West Coast? 8 o'clock Eastern?
Let me check for sure.
Yeah. But I think that it's going to be interesting because both guys have images that would be consistent with them mixing it up a little bit. So I suspect it's 6 to 7:30 Eastern time. Oh, Pacific time. 6 to 7:30 Pacific time. So that'll be 9 to 10:30 there on the East Coast. And who's carrying it, Kim?
Google it.
CBS, I believe.
Sure. Okay.
I think it's CBS.
Kim, are you you in your news nook? What do you have going on over there?
I am in the news nook, but you're just firing these questions at me. You didn't tell me you were
Well,
going to ask me that.
It's a major debate.
CBS
tomorrow
News is hosting the debate, but I'm sure you'll be able to find it everywhere.
night. All right.
Kim, how are you?
All right. Very, very good.
It's being live streamed on all platforms where CBS News 24/7 and Paramount Plus are available.
Wow. Very nice. Very nice. All right. Well, well done. We're looking forward to that. Now, meantime, in a ramp up to the debate, J.D. Vance has had a busy weekend. He was visiting an event hosted by the hard-right Christian nationalist Lance Wallnau. The event, sponsored by this hard-right Christian nationalist group, has demonized during the festivities. We'll play a little bit for you. You'll get a vibe for it. During these festivities, they, of course, elevate Christian nationalism and Christianity. And, of course, there's nothing wrong with Christianity and all of that. But they can't elevate without diminishing the other side and really going after, in fact, I'd say diminishing is a polite way to put it. I might say demonizing Kamala Harris and the left and the Democrats. And so Vance appeared at this event. And as you know, many of the views that hard-right Christian nationalists have do conform to the views that have been expressed by J.D. Vance. A lot of them have to do with women and women's role in the culture and society and this kind of thing. So in that spirit, here's the guy who hosted the event that J.D. Vance was in attendance for. Lance Wallow is his name. And you'll get a Walno, I think. Wallnau. Here he is.
And what you're seeing now is a real Jezebel. You're going to see a lot of people saying that. It doesn't, it's like Pentecostal 101.
He's talking about Kamala Harris.
Somebody
now,
operating in
Jezebel.
manipulation, intimidation, and domination, especially when it's in a female role, trying to emasculate a man who is standing up for truth. You're dealing with the Jezebel spirit. What was accomplished was she can look presidential, and we'll go to this later. That's the seduction of what I would say is witchcraft. That's the manipulation of imagery that creates an impression contrary to the truth, but it seduces you into seeing it. So that spirit, that occult spirit, I believe is operating on her and through her, similar to with Obama, that there's a kind of an angel of light, charisma. You can see it at the DNC. And so when you're up against that, the good news is if we're going to go full tilt Pentecostal, Jezebel may be the spirit you're up against, but then Trump has like an Elijah mantle on him, probably from the intercession of a million Christians. We've got to lean into this thing because the Elijah mantle can break the spell of witchcraft off America. God can tear the veil.
Tony. It's so much BS where you apply various labels and, spiritual explanations to whatever is going on. You give Trump the Elijah mantle. You give Kamala Harris this Jezebel thing. Jezebel is the seductress from the Bible, and it's also I believe it's also a racially bigoted term as well. So it's used. It serves a double purpose that way.
See, Obama would love to be the Antichrist.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, but you see how every one of these guys, it's so much easier to not have to talk about issues or about policy or about anything substantive. It's so much easier just to pull this stuff out of your ass.
They're crazy. They absolutely are crazy.
Yeah, the light, the Elijah spirit, all this. It's just crap piled on, and he's not done. He's almost done though. Go ahead, Tony.
Veil is torn. We have a lot working against us.
Oh, I guess he was pretty well done. But essentially, they're suggesting that there is a satanic kind of cover-up that's going on. You got more? Did you find more? What is this?
This is from his the actual thing Saturday night. If you want to hear some of his live in front of the stage, we could just cut it off anytime.
Yeah.
Twist out of context, kaboom! I got ABC, NBC, CBS all asking me to clarify what I meant. It's like, what in the world? So the Lord spoke to me and said, this message will be confirmed with signs following. And one of the signs is, it's heard. The second sign is, God's going to confirm it supernaturally. Now, I'm not one of those people that is, the healing evangelist type that's always wanting to lay hands on people. But the Lord said, you better start doing that. So we didn't do it today because we had bicycle stuff here. But I'm up in Michigan. The Lord says I'm with Mario, and I'm realizing God will confirm the word with signs following. I want you all to begin to realize, I don't care if you're accustomed to seeing the miraculous. Get your mind renewed to the fact that you're going to lay hands on people, and God's going to shock you with what he does. Because I think what we're on is a cutting-edge alchemy of a fresh move of God with a word that God wants to supernaturally confirm.
Okay, so, I've heard enough. I mean, again, it's just all invented. It's all, I just got off the phone with the Lord, and let me tell you, he's going to appear supernaturally.
This is a word from the Lord, and he's not happy.
Yeah, I mean, it's utterly, and here's the problem with it. It jams the gears of reasoning so that there are people who look to faith and look to even the church and organized religious groups for comfort, for guidance, and this crap is really, again, taking all of those people way off course. And I would suggest even worse, undermining reason And so you end up with this following that these people have, and it's not insubstantial, and it can buoy a candidate like Donald Trump, who they've chosen as their imperfect vessel to do the Lord's perfect work. You know, that's the way they get their heads around the fact that Donald Trump is, you know, spews a lot of hate, isn't a religious man in any way, and as, you know, again, he's not one of them, but they, again, point to him as the imperfect leader who is doing the perfect word of the Lord, who can at least lead ahead so that they can do the perfect word of the Lord. And the last thing I'll say, and I've said it before, and I'll say it forever, is how can we possibly allow these churches to be tax exempt? You can see that they are political arms of movements that flex their muscle at election time and can actually influence elections. They influence policy, they influence thinking, and it's way beyond the spiritual. They're using the spiritual to influence the political. And you know what I say? Fine, go ahead and do that. I don't have an issue. I'm sure all of these various churches and temples have views about public policy that do affect society in ways that they desperately feel are important. Cool. Send your message, dude. All I'm saying is pay taxes. You shouldn't be tax exempt. But, you know, find me any politician in America who would suggest that. No one wants to touch it. No one wants to touch it. So, but anyway, that's where J.D. Vance was. And he also, as you know, has done a lot of, there he is, done a lot of work with Tucker Carlson. And he is, in my view, Carlson is a loathsome figure. He's praised Holocaust deniers. He's really, I think, way off the deep end. I don't know what his relationship is with Russia, but it's a curious one. In any case, that's where J.D. Vance was, at least for a part of this weekend, and that's the crew that has fallen in line behind J.D. Vance. But the other thing about J.D. Vance that's interesting, there he is with Tucker Carlson, is that there are a number of J.D. Vance private messages that came out in a hack. And this hack has told us kind of what we knew, but to hear it and see it from J.D. Vance himself, what he was saying about Donald Trump. He called Donald Trump cultural heroin. He makes some feel better for a bit, but he cannot fix what ails them. And one day they'll realize it. That's from J.D. Vance, the vice presidential candidate. What Trump offers is an easy escape from the pain to every complex problem. He promises a simple solution. He never offers details for how these plans will work because he can't. Trump's promises are the needle in America's collective vein. Again, J.D. Vance wrote that. Now, he wrote it 8 years ago, okay? But these were the musings and opinions of this guy who is now running with Donald Trump to lead America. And the other thing I would just point out when you look at J.D. Vance, because you're going to be looking at him at this debate tomorrow night, is that with Donald Trump's age, you very much have to reflect on the fact that he could end up ascending to the presidency. I mean, it's possible. So that was the big news, this Vance hack. I'll ask Gary Dietrich about it. Again, I suspect that from the standpoint of the electorate, it's all baked in. You know, there's no news or leak or, yeah, right, contradiction that is really going to matter. But
according to the Washington Post, some of these messages that have been leaked now were sent as direct messages on what was then Twitter, now X, and as few as 4 years ago. So in the 2020 election, he was sending messages about, negative about Trump, how Trump was a failed president, how his economic policies didn't work. and how he thought Biden would win, Vance was saying back in 2020. So 4 years ago isn't very long. And I wonder if the Trump campaign had known about this beforehand.
Yeah, thank you for that, because the quotes I read you were 8 years old, but you're right. There are others that were criticisms of Trump and, real broadsides to him that are not as old.
Yeah.
And I don't think they did heavy vetting on J.D. Vance. I mean, J.D. Vance was a pick. Well, we can ask Gary about it. But J.D. Vance was a pick that was really pushed by Don Jr. and Eric and ultimately Trump at the time was running against Joe Biden and I think feeling a sense of confidence. And it was really one of those picks where you got this fire-breathing dragon, which is what J.D. Vance is, on the ticket with you, very media-savvy guy, seemed like, he could smack talk alongside Trump, and he could be MAGA into the future. Like, he would carry the mantle of MAGA-ness into the future, was the thinking, I believe, that went behind it. I think facing Kamala Harris, he might have picked somebody who would balance the ticket more completely. J.D. Vance doesn't balance the ticket. He, in essence, fires up that base. But, all right, that's the latest and more as we continue. But with Vance very much in the news and in the debate tomorrow night, that's the latest on
The Mark Thompson Show.
This guy is the political pundit who you can find across the CBS television stations, also on iHeart Radio and iHeart Media. He joins us on Mondays. He's magical when it comes to politics. It's the great Gary Dietrich, everybody. Yeah. I use the word magical. You're goddamn right I did. I'm a big fan.
Okay.
All right, so
magic. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, that's right. So don't disappoint. All right, now, first a word on Vance. Do you agree that all this stuff that's coming out on him, that he disagreed with Trump, these are various opinions he had a few years ago, I'm guessing that doesn't move the meter much?
No, you're exactly right, Mark. Here's a couple things, okay? I don't know, this must be a new tranche. That's a new word of this. I don't know. When he was first nominated. I mean, this isn't new news. There was, knocks on Trump from Vance. And then, of course, the natural response, well, wait a minute. In 2020, Kamala Harris's biggest debate moment was taking on Joe Biden over racism, right? And Joe Biden apparently was incensed that she would imply that Joe was a racist. I mean, this has gone on. You go back to Ronald Reagan, George Bush Sr., voodoo economics, he called Reagan's economic plan. All of a sudden, he ends up as the vice president on the ticket. I mean, so this isn't brand new kind of stuff. I think to your point, Mark, is it going to move the needle? No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I just think it's one more thing. And of course, it's coming out again this week because of tomorrow night's debate. But really, honestly, from an objective political analyst point of view, I don't think this moves anybody one way or the other.
So on that, tomorrow night, does that fall into the same category too, the vice presidential debate? It doesn't matter. It only matters if somebody screws up. Although there have been some pretty high-profile screw-ups in vice presidential debates, and I don't know that they affected the general either.
Yeah, well, I think it's more significant than normal for a couple of reasons. And by the way, there have been national kind of voices that have written about this as well, saying probably the most consequential VP debate in modern history. Why are they saying that? A couple of things. One is because people have realized this time around, right? Oh, you know what? Who you pick for vice president can make a big, big difference. I heard you before I came on, Trump's older, something could happen to him, right? I mean, you just don't know. Kamala Harris is a witness to the fact you better have a vice president that you're ready to ascend to the presidency. That's number one. Secondly, it looks like this is going to be the last big orchestrated event of this election cycle, right? There'll be lots and lots of rallies and all kinds of stuff, but it doesn't look like there's going to be another presidential debate. And so this is kind of the last there'll be a big audience for tomorrow night, I think, because of that. And thirdly, because Vance and Walz, prior to their ascendancy to the vice presidential nominees, who knew them, right? And still there's a lot of uncertainty about these guys. People want to see them perform, right? I mean, they want to see, okay, so this vice president person, let's see how they do. So I think there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on this. And to your point, is there going to be a Dan Quayle kind of moment, deer in the headlights, right? When when he was saying, like, you're no Jack Kennedy, right? And he was kind of like, So is there going to be one of those? We'll see. I mean, there's people are setting expectations. They're setting the bar. Over the weekend, the guy that has sat in, the member of Congress that sat in to be Vance's foil, Tim Walz, called him a Gavin Newsom in a flannel shirt. I mean, that is Walz. So we're going to see. We'll see how they do. But I think there's going to be a lot of interest in this. I really do.
Yeah, with that line, you make me think of the fact that these days people are so savvy that if you have preloaded stuff like that, you need to perform it, if you will, utter it, say it, display it in an authentic way, which is not always easy. If it sounds canned, it actually backfires on you. I mean, there's certain things these days, you don't have a public that goes, oh, that's a great line. I wonder, what I mean? It has to feel right, Gary? It's a little more challenging, I feel, these days.
No, I think you're right. I mean, the master of this, of course, was Reagan and his debates. There you go again, right, with Jimmy Carter.
Right.
I mean, that became like a mantra, and I'm not going to hold, your young age against you on the age issue. But, I think that you're right, Mark. People are media savvy. But make no mistake about it. Everybody recognized there were some things that Kamala Harris said and did that clearly were structured into her debate prep. There's no doubt about that. Even people on her side said, yeah, we were ready for that, and she was ready to deliver that. So I have no doubt on both sides they're ready for it. And you're right, though. It has to look like it comes from your gut. If it came from the hand of your last, political speechwriter, people are going to throw it away.
I want to ask you now about the general aspect of Trump on the stump. I'm seeing a lot of stuff from Trump now that feels like it's first, of course, very far afield from any kind of policy. It's really directed toward a kind of negativity and, it's a smear, I guess, is what it's like one big smear is what he does on the stump. We got a little supercut of Trump on the stump. And I guess I have one basic question to ask you, which is sort of a jetliner view of things. You, as a political analyst for decades, the political discourse in America, it feels as though it's changed forever. But then I want to ask you about this stuff that he's saying and whether or not it breaks through, if it's a negative, or if it just doesn't matter. It's just who he is. Now we kind of go ahead, Tony, play a little bit for Gary, please.
Kamala is mentally impaired. If a Republican did what she did, if a Republican did what she did, that Republican would be impeached and removed from office, and rightfully so, for high crimes and misdemeanors. Joe Biden became mentally impaired. Kamala was born that way. She was born that way. And if you think about it, only a mentally disabled person could have allowed this to happen to our country. Anybody would know this. There's something wrong with Kamala, and I just don't know what it is, but there is definitely something missing. And you know what? Everybody knows it. She's a stupid person. Stupid person. I don't care. I don't care. If they didn't cheat, I wouldn't even be here today. You know why? I wouldn't have to campaign. I'm here only because they cheat, and they cheat in this state, especially in Philadelphia. And I mentioned a couple of the areas, but for the most part, but Philadelphia is out of control. Detroit is out of control. Atlanta is out of control. Places are out of control, because if there was no cheating, if God came down from a high and said, I am going to be your vote tabulator for this election, I would leave this podium right now because I wouldn't have to speak. We wouldn't have any problem. We have to have a landslide because they cheat so damn much.
So with that, I turn to you and ask you, again, the political discourse has changed, maybe forever. All of a sudden, it's okay to kind of smear like this. But wow, he seems to have cranked it up to 11, Give me your sense of this, and does this reflect a desperation, or is it just who he is?
Yeah, well, let me start with what I think is the more important question. That's your first one, Mark. I, for one, and I really truly believe that most Americans are in this place, recognize we pray and hope not forever. Okay? I mean, I really think that we have reached sort of an apex, and people are like, oh, I'm so done with this. How many times do you hear people say, I'm so over this election already, right? Let's move on. I think that there's a collective sigh whenever you hear this kind of garbage from whoever it comes from, right? It's like, this is not what we want our high school kids watching in their civics classes, all right? I mean, seriously. And I'm just hopeful, Mark, that the proverbial political pendulum, especially, whether Trump gets elected or doesn't get elected, I remind people in 4 years he's done, right? So, or less than that. So I think I'm hopeful that the discourse begins to calm down. That's number one. Number two, when it comes to the whole notion of Trump, this, as people will say, this is who you expect him to be, right? I mean, whether it's the people in his own party, right? I mean, bird brain, Mr. Small Hands about Marco Rubio. It just seems like this is, unfortunately, a part of Donald Trump's discourse that even as, many in his own party have decried, especially people in the U.S. Senate in his own party who are fighting like heck to take back control of that chamber, have kept saying, tone it down, stick with the policy, right? And, we got 5 weeks left. Do I expect this to change dramatically? Probably not. But again, to your prior point, does this really move the needle? People have seen this from Donald Trump for so many years. I'm not sure this really surprises them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think there are a group of people who love it. I think
I suppose there are.
Well, in that crowd, when he goes to that stuff, honestly, right, he gets big cheers, and I'm sure that's one of the things that eggs him on. He went to another weird, the mentally impaired thing that he accused. That was really just. I'm thinking, wow, man, it's an insult on so many different levels, including to those who have mental challenges or whatever. But I would also suggest that Tony, do you have the violence, him calling for a day of violence? I mean, he's riffing. I'm not suggesting that he sits down and writes this stuff out ahead of time. He just gets up there and riffs, and as a performer, he comes up with this stuff, but he really leaned in hard to the idea, and he knows that people in major cities, all of us, are bothered by crime, what we see, these viral videos of people going in and jacking stuff from pharmacies and from department stores. And so he plays on this with calling for, or at least opening the door to a day of violence. Again, this won't be a policy, but it's just wild that he's musing in this way. Go ahead, Tony.
And the funny thing with all of that stuff, look at the department stores, same thing. They walk into you see these guys walking out with air conditioners, with refrigerators on their back, the craziest thing. And the police aren't allowed to do their job. They're told, if you do anything, you're going to lose your pension, you're going to lose your family, your house, your car. The police want to do it. The Border Patrol wants to do it. Border Patrol, they're incredible. They want to do it. They're not allowed to do it because the liberal left won't let them do it. The liberal left wants to destroy them, and they want to destroy our country. If you had one day, like one real rough, nasty day with the drugstores as an example, where when they start walking out with, she created something in San Francisco, $950 you're allowed to steal. Anything above that, you will be prosecuted. Well, it works out that the $950 is a misnomer because you can steal whatever you want, you can go way above. But you'd see, originally you saw kids walk in with calculators. They were calculators. They didn't want to go over the $950. They're standing with calculators, adding it up. These are smart people. They're not so stupid, but they have to be taught. Now, if you had one really violent day, like a guy like Mike Kelly, put him in charge, Congressman Kelly, put him in charge for one day. Mike, would you say, he's right here, He's a great congressman. Would you say, Mike, that if you were in charge, you would say, oh, please, don't touch them. Don't touch them. Let them rob your store. All these stores go out of business, right? They don't pay rent. The city doesn't have money. It's a chain of events that's so bad. One rough hour, and I mean real rough, the word will get out and it will end immediately. End immediately.
All right, thank you.
You know?
Yeah, so I don't know where to start on that. I'll let you begin.
Well, you hit the nail on the head, Mark, kind of in the lead into this. He is tapping into something that is real, right? I mean, people are very frustrated about the smash and grab. Being in California, especially, that has been a deal. I mean, when you saw places like even nice communities along the coast, right, where they were just, being ransacked. This isn't just, sometimes people, it's in poor neighborhoods. No, Union Square in San Francisco, yada, yada. You could go down the list. So he's tapping into a sentiment, and then to your point, goes off script. I don't think it was written on his teleprompter, one really rough hour. I don't think that was on there. It's just, he just takes keeps escalating, and then he gets a few, cheers on that. No police chief is going to turn his guy into the gal's boots with billy clubs like, a major city 50, 60 years ago. That's not going to happen, right? But that's sort of the imagery he's stirring up as well. If you went in there and knocked heads, then we'd be done with this. If he would just stick with, look, they have a proposition in California to undo the $950 proposition. You know this, Mark. Prop 36 is going to be on the ballot. I'll tell you, if you look at the polling, he should just say, look at the polling for that now. That's being favored even by Democrats in California. It's winning. The polls show it winning by like 3-1. That would be the policy way to approach this rather than let's take nightsticks and go after them.
I don't think he has much of a head for policy. I don't think he really understands policy or wants to understand it. He's a kind of an entertainer. I think that's what you get from him. This has been said before. This is no revelation, but I think it's important to remind people because the press particularly normalizes this candidate, Donald Trump, as though he's like other candidates with a policy for the economy, a policy regarding foreign interaction, a policy for the border. There's no policy there. He smack talks all of these issues, and then others who are concerned with policy come in with policy. But he is someone who can't even explain his tariffs. Now, look, I understand I'm a partisan, but I'd objectively say, well, he's got some good ideas on such and such. For example, I think you make the point so beautifully, I guess we both made it, which is that the frustration with this law and order or lack of it in some California cities and in cities nationwide is something that's a legit grievance. He doesn't have a policy for it. He just identifies it and smack talks about it, and then that reminds people, that guy's as angry about the law and order thing as we are. He's as angry about the immigrant thing as we are. He's as angry about the war as we are. And that anger was enough to carry him in 2016. Will it be enough, since we know him so well, to carry him in this election? It's a dead heat now, and it's possible, right, in these swing states that this kind of strategy could take him across the finish line.
Well, visceral issues seem to be taking the fore in this election more than many recent presidential cycles. What do I mean about that? Let's look at some of the top issues. They are very, very visceral. That's the only way to put it. Abortion, that is certainly in that category. Immigration, that is certainly in that category. Crime, that is in that category. And I'd even throw inflation in that category because people, when they draw, I tell people, the worst possible numbers for a president or a governor or whoever are those numbers on every street corner, on every gas station. Those are the numbers that people see every day. The numbers that come on their receipt when they check out the grocery store, right? Those are powerful, visceral indicators to people. Geez, yeah, that reminds me. They're driving down the street. That's why I'm upset, right? Or they see a guy running out of a store with stuff. That's why I'm upset. So those visceral indicators, I think, have been very palpable and powerful. And I'll even throw, this is something people are writing about just in the last week, Mark. Foreign policy is more in center stage than it's been for a long time, since maybe Vietnam or since the Iran hostage crisis way back in the 70s, because people see on their TV sets, Ukraine, Gaza, those kind of things, right? And it's unsettling to them, right? Because they don't want to send our guys and gals into harm's way in those kind of arenas. So I think there's a visceral quality to this election, perhaps more than we've seen in a long time.
That's a great take. He does tap into that. In my last minute with you, I want to ask you about the Republican Party and that to which you just referred, which is some of these foreign conflicts. Where is the Republican Party on Ukraine?
Well, I think you're having a mixed bag on Ukraine. You have some people like Lindsey Graham who are still very, very supportive of arming the Ukrainians, of defeating Russia. So I think you've got a clear split inside the Republican Party, as in some ways you do in the Democratic Party, for example, on Israel, Gaza, okay, which is one part of the party saying we've got to stand behind those people who feel like, they're defending themselves, be it Israel in the Gaza conflict or be it Ukraine in the Ukrainian-Russia conflict. And then you have the other side to say, enough is enough. We need peace in Israel. We need to tone down the military stuff. And there's some in the Republican Party now, of course, saying this about Russia and Ukraine. We need to cut a deal. There needs to be. And so to me, if you look at it from a foreign policy graduate school course level, at some place like the Kennedy School, you'd say, this is a really interesting dynamic. It isn't totally isolationist on the part of either party, but there are factions that say you need to back off the military and get to the peace table. But it's just that it's different for the two parties in those two theaters. Does that make sense?
Totally. It's fascinating. And I think it's interesting that you characterize it that way and suggest that this is a moment in time that way that could actually be studied, that because you're seeing a real pivot within the party, and not everybody is pivoting in the same way. Love talking to you. Where do you watch the debate, Gary Dietrich? I'm always curious as to, do you have to watch? You probably you're there, probably having to watch it in a studio because you're doing political analysis.
Yeah, I'm gonna be physically in our CBS Sacramento studios. I'm gonna be on air right after the debate. I'll be on the 8 o'clock, the 10 o'clock, the 11 o'clock taping for the next morning. I'll be doing iHeart Radio from the CBS station. So I will watch it with our CBS team. They'll be doing some, kind of on-the-fly analysis, fact-check stuff, and asking me, hey, what do you think of the main points we ought to hit? We come out of this. So I'll be doing that. And then, of course, it'll be available across the platforms. But if people wanted to hear me in particular, you just go to CBS, go to our CBS app, and you can watch live real time. Across the top, you're going to see CBS Network and then all of our regional markets, New York, LA, Sacramento. You click on CBS Sacramento, you're going to have the misfortune of seeing me.
All right. We love our time with you, my friend. Gary Dietrich can be seen in all those places and heard across the iHeart Radio network. We'll talk to you next Monday. Thanks, Gary. Gary Dietrich, everybody. Gary Dietrich is brought to us by Bill Campbell at Remax Gold. Thank you, Bill. If you're relocating into or from Northern California, you need a highly respected real estate professional, and Bill Campbell is that professional. He's at Remax Gold. Call or even text him, 530-448-7474, 530-448-7474. We appreciate that Bill makes Gary's segment come to us every week. Thank you so much, Bill Campbell. Right on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
We are into a second hour that includes True Crime Corner with Courtney. My hair is all puffy today. Sorry about that. And we also have Kim's news upcoming. And I don't want to skip too much over True Crime Corner too quickly because we have a guest in True Crime Corner coming up as well. I also have, I've got a chunk of Trump. Believe it or not, we talked a bit about Trump. I know we showed you the supercut of Trump, but I've got other Trump news related to his watches. And I've also got Kim's. This is the tough
conundrum.
Stuff.
What do you do?
Yeah, it really is. Conundrum's a ding word. The word from Luis is just back from the amazing Ohana Festival. Funny response by Eddie Vedder. Can you help me with this, Tony? Because this is music, and I feel like this is your
Eddie
world.
Vedder of Pearl Jam.
Pearl Jam.
To Trump.
To the Trump Bible, U.S. Constitution grift.
I didn't
He said, I didn't realize Jesus was an American. I love it. I love it. Eddie Vedder. Don't expect it. A lot of people more politically active and weighing in on politics than I would have thought. Good stuff, Luis. Thank you for the super chat.
Big shout out.
Big shout out, indeed. You saw no contendo on the references from Trump. And Wes says, happy Monday, everyone. I'm still peeing my pants from SNL's opening skit on Saturday. Or maybe that's just old age. Wow.
Big shout out.
Right. Right on, Wes. And I think that's it. I think
Jim pops in with 5.
I wonder go ahead.
I wonder if the voices in my head is the Lord, and I just never realized it. It's a possibility.
That's right. Yeah, the Lord speaks to many of us. You just have to be tuned in and listen, apparently. Really wild. The Pentecostal thing is a great show. I just don't, I don't think you can take it seriously. I'm sorry. That's where I am on it. But, I love a good show. So, that's there's no show like the Pentecostal show, man. That's Hour of Terror is a call to his maniacs, says Audrey. I'm going to do a chunk of Trump quickly, and it is just a morsel or two. So if you've got it ready to go, I turn to you, Tony. This is a chunk of Trump.
Open wide.
Ready?
Here comes your chunk of Trump.
It's my favorite food.
With your first bite, here's Mark Thompson.
I have a feeling it's going to be beautiful.
Trump's vastly overpriced, according to experts, $100,000 Swiss watch is probably made in, anybody?
China.
The former president's new timepieces, apparently among watch aficionados, are a laughingstock.
Are these the $100,000 ones?
Yes, indeed. Trump debuted a pair of watches available for sale. It's a dive model first, the Fighter, limited to 1,000 pieces, retails for $499 or $799, depending on the style. And then this high-end Tourbillon. It's depicted as being crafted of 18-karat gold and embellished with diamonds on the bezel. Only 147 pieces will be made, apparently. Listed for an astonishing $100,000, all of these pieces display Trump's name prominently on the dial. And the more expensive model features a sapphire caseback with his signature. Word quickly spreading among the watch community. They were overwhelmingly unimpressed. Quote, "This is cobbled together, patently unoriginal, and vastly overpriced," said Ariel Adams, founder and editor of a blog to watch, one of the industry's most popular sites for timepiece information and education. Quote, "It's very clear he's working with a white labeler, which is nothing new. Anyone can go to a white labeler and say, I want a watch with this case, this bracelet, and these other details, and a white labeler will Frankenstein it together, put your name on it, and sell it to you. But the price you sell it for is up to you. That the markup came from someone on Trump's team is obvious here. Even the $500 piece from another brand would probably go for $200. So a marketing director of a well-known Swiss brand who asked not to be named said, quote, "I belong to a collector group that maintains an ongoing group chat, and the initial reaction was that it had to be fake. After that, everyone was laughing. When you look at all of them, they scream Chinese-made watches. None of them is worth the asking price." The website, of course, touts them, Kim, as Swiss-made when describing the watches, but apparently it's not uncommon among manufacturers of lower-priced designs to manipulate that designation by purchasing some Swiss-made parts and assembling the watch in another country.
What? Did Trump not just make a big speech about how we have to get American jobs back and, American made and all this is very important?
All of his stuff is made in China or
buy my watch, made in China.
And finally, the experts say, quote, those blue screws on the tourbillon cage are a dead giveaway that it was partly made in China. You won't find blue screws on a tourbillon made in Switzerland. And you can pick up a Chinese tourbillon for $100.
Oh.
Yeah. There are a bunch of other aspects to the watch that apparently also reflect a Chinese origins. The gem setting looks very rough, says one dealer, while the indices on the dial also look set within the markers, not outset, which also looks very amateurish. And if you play the video, the marketing director of this watch company said, if you play the video, you can see dust on all the screws. It's really terrible. The tourbillon watch is as ersatz as the man himself. They can employ all the superlatives they want on their site, but collectors have already figured out that it's half Swiss, half Chinese, and you can buy it off the rack. Any value from this watch would only come from melting it down and selling the gold and diamonds. Wow, that's a rough one.
Good day, sir.
Wow, that is. It goes against what he said, Kim, because he says that it's a reflection of the Trump brand and success and, you know, all the magic that is the shimmer and shine of Donald Trump.
Yeah, sounds like a real, true reflection of the Trump brand.
Yeah.
Right? Shiny on the surface, cheap underneath.
That is a chunk of Trump.
That's it for this edition.
Well, I really enjoyed it.
But make sure to join us again next time.
I think you might want to listen. There's nothing wrong with listening.
For another chunk of Trump.
All right, so how should we do this? You want some Kim's News now? And I can do Law and Disorder if we have time. I think we have True Crime Corner coming up. I can do Law and Disorder now, and then we can turbo Kim's News. Kim, I'll leave it to you. Go ahead.
Kim, how are you?
What would you like to do?
Let's do a little news now.
All right. News now, and then we have True Crime Corner. I'll try to shoehorn in a Law and Disorder if I can't before. I'll do it after the True Crime Corner. Thank you, everybody, for supporting the show in all the ways you do. We are a crowd-funded show. We came out of talk radio, where we had a successful radio show on KGO Radio in San Francisco, and we never had to worry about asking the audience for money. There were commercials to, of course, support us. Here, we need our Patreon and PayPal audience, and that part of the audience that goes to Patreon and PayPal has been so very supportive. You're the real reason that we're on every day. I mean, you make it happen. And those of you who hit us with super stickers and super chats, you're also so important to us. So Patreon and PayPal hot links are underneath all of our videos, underneath this video as well. I mentioned Tony, who's a brand new Patreon member. Big shout out to Tony.
Big shout out.
Not our Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
But I can give him the thanks, Tony, still.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah. That's not for you.
Thanks, Tony.
That's for Tony, who's a $10 a month supporter on Patreon. Tom, just editing his membership from $20 a month to $30 a month.
Wow.
It is.
What?
Yeah. Big shout out to Tom.
Big shout out.
Tom C. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I really do appreciate that, Tom. That's super cool. A $5 a month member. He doesn't have a name. I'm just going to say, I don't want him to be, inundated with spam or whatever. So, not Mr. I'll just call him that. Thank you, not Mr. for
Big
joining.
shout out.
And he'll know what we mean. But those are just a handful that have come in, and I really do appreciate it. It means a whole lot that you would take a moment and take some of your funds and your discretionary income and direct it to keep our show going. It means an awful lot. You can find us at themarkthompsonshow.com. You can email us at themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. But themarkthompsonshow.com has click-throughs to everything I'm talking about, Patreon and PayPal. And as I say, there are links under all videos. There's the website. Tony's got it up for you now. themarkthompsonshow.com. Anything else? I don't think so. Thanks for all the love, all the support. Kim's News, and we continue. Mark Thompson.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked. On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this report is sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. Helene, boy, was this a horrible storm. The latest death toll being blamed on Hurricane Helene, 116 deaths, and this is across the southeast. Dozens are reported dead from catastrophic flooding in the Asheville, North Carolina area alone. Search and recovery efforts are underway across that region as widespread power outages and little or no cell phone service complicate the federal, state, and local response. So Hurricane Helene taking quite the toll. Israel is reportedly carrying out commando raids in southern Lebanon ahead of a possible ground operation there. This comes as tensions continue to rise in the Middle East, with some fearing an all-out regional war. Lebanese officials have reported Israeli airstrikes have killed hundreds and displaced thousands as Israel targets Hezbollah fighters there. The man accused of attempting to shoot former President Trump on a Florida golf course is pleading not guilty. 58-year-old Ryan Ruth appeared in a Florida federal court Monday to be arraigned on charges including attempted assassination of a major presidential candidate. He was arrested earlier this month after a Secret Service agent reportedly spotted him hiding in the bushes with a rifle at Trump International Golf Club in West Palm Beach. Ruth will remain jailed while he awaits trial. Governor Kathy Hochul in New York not planning on taking any action for now on removing New York City Mayor Eric Adams from office over all of his legal troubles. That's a picture of Mr. Adams. Hochul said she is monitoring the situation, giving the mayor an opportunity to demonstrate to New Yorkers the ability to move forward with effective government. Adams faces numerous federal charges that he allegedly accepted bribes and illegal campaign contributions. Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile users across the country are reporting some outages today. The website Down Detector says there have been nearly 100,000 reports of users experiencing issues. Some people say their phone is stuck in SOS mode and they are unable to send texts or make any type of calls. J.D. Vance and Tim Walz are preparing until the very last minute for Tuesday's vice presidential debate on CBS. This is a 90-minute face-off. Will be the vice presidential candidates' one and only debate, so they have to make the most of it. No audience again, but there will be open microphones this time. So that'll be interesting or possibly chaotic. President Biden will not be intervening to stop a potential dock workers strike. Speaking to reporters in Delaware, the president says he does not believe in the Taft-Hartley Act, which is a law that would allow him to delay a strike with a court order. Thousands of longshoremen are set to strike this week amid stalled labor contract talks. It would likely disrupt commercial trade on a massive scale and seriously impact the U.S. economy. President Jimmy Carter will be celebrating his 100th birthday tomorrow. He is already the longest living president in the United States, or in United States history, I should say. There's a star-studded concert that was held in Atlanta earlier in September to celebrate the occasion, where the B-52s, Sean Penn, former President Barack Obama, all took part in that event that will air on Georgia Public Broadcasting and be available to watch online. And our own friend of the show, Spencer Christian, from ABC 7 will be hosting a celebration on Marin TV as well.
I thought he was going to come on the show.
I'm going to ask him, but I haven't yet, but I will.
Oh, all right.
I'm on it.
Man, I wanted to see him to promote it, but we promoted it just now.
I blame you.
All right, okay.
Let's see if I can get him on tomorrow. The state is expanding coverage for in vitro fertilization, the state being California. Governor Gavin Newsom signed a bill yesterday that will require large group health plans and disability insurance policies provide coverage for infertility and fertility services, including IVF. It means more support for families trying to have children. The new law is expected to start in July of 2025. It was signed after U.S. Senate Republicans blocked a nationwide in vitro fertilization access guarantee. This is Governor Gavin Newsom's answer to that. A news satire website is suing the state of California over laws that they say essentially make political satire illegal in this state. The Babylon Bee says the laws clamp down on free speech. Governor Newsom signed several bills into law focusing on deep fake videos and stories published on social media and elsewhere. One of the laws requires satirical content to be clearly labeled as such or removed. The editor-in-chief of the Babylon Bee says requiring a disclaimer to let readers know an article is a parody stifles and kills the joke. Lastly, a third now, multi-million-dollar mansion in the Los Angeles area has been covered in graffiti. This is a vacant mansion. It's the Mediterranean Villa in the upscale community of Bel Air. There it is. Tony's got it up on the screen. Look at that. I mean, when you talk about graffiti, they hit this one hard. Wow. This home was once belonged to the movie producer Arthur Freed. More recently, Ibrahim bin Laden, Osama bin Laden's half-brother, had this house. It was designed by famed architect John Elgin Wolfe. The home was for sale in 2021 for $28 million. Today's price, not including the cost of repairing the damage done by vandals, $21.5 million for this home covered in graffiti in Bel Air.
That's unreal. Just incredible.
They even tagged the roof.
I still don't understand how this kind of thing goes down. You know what I mean?
I guess there's not a big enough police presence in Bel Air. I don't know. Look, they even tagged the roof. You can see from the above there, the sky shot, the drone footage.
Yeah.
I mean, they're everywhere. They're on the roof. They're on the walls. Just because it's sitting vacant, no one's paying attention. So there you go.
Well, what's happened is neighbors, as you're well aware, are furious. I mean, it's affecting the neighborhood. It's affecting property values, all the rest. So, and it's true. Norm says people hire private cops in those areas. While it is true that is the case, I mean, they have actually limited powers. So, for example, I don't think they can go onto that property and do anything. And the other weird thing is that you'd have to catch them in the act. You know what I mean? You'd have to catch the vandalism while it's going on. It's
crazy.
Pretty brutal, yeah.
Man, this report is sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. Look at this. This is footage of the grape stomp. You're thinking fall, October arrives, and this is what you get you in the spirit for fall and the harvest. Yeah, the I Love Lucy grape stomp. It is going down at Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. They have all kinds of dates upcoming, grape stomps in October. It's a really fun event as well. You arrive, you get a mimosa, you go out to the vineyards in this romantic setting out at Tenuta and Livermore, and you cut the grapes off the vines. Then you go back, have a nice lunch. They have a big spread there. And then after lunch, it is take off the shoes because you're going to stomp the grapes. So much fun. They call this a bucket list event, something you really want to do. So this is the I Love Lucy Grape Stomp. You can check it out at tenutawinery.com. And then if you decide you'd like to go, make sure that you say smash it with your iron rod when you book your ticket. That'll get you 10% off. It'll
smash it with your iron rod.
Just like that. It'll get you 10% off of your ticket to the Grape Stomp. It'll get you 10% off any wines you buy out at Tenuta Vineyard. anything you order, anything you buy, is they have beer on tap out there too. 10% off across the board. That's right. So here's what you do. You either call Rich at Tenuta Vineyards at 925-699-4576. That's 925-699-4576. Or you can email as well. Check the website out, tenutawinery.com. You can see the list of event dates there. And then you can email at rich@tenutavineyards.com. The website is tenutawinery.com. His email is rich@tenutavineyards.com. That's it. I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now, he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson. Feel it in your soul. The Mark Thompson Show.
We'll do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
I did everything right and they indicted me. I misspoke. I stand corrected. My words upset so many people. My bad. I'm sorry.
Y'all can all go to hell and I'm going back to Texas.
Have you ever been a member of the Chinese Communist Party?
Slightly surprised that Piers Morgan's doing
That was very inappropriate.
My beautiful Christians, I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. I love you. I only like people that like me.
Put that coffee down.
There's never been anything like this.
Wow. I'm loving it. Thank you for being here. We are a live show coming to you from 2 to 4 Eastern. What is it, 11 to 1 Pacific? And all the other times that apply to time zones in between. Coming up, True Crime Corner, hosted by Courtney, but this week, joined by Matt Murphy. Matt Murphy is a former senior deputy district attorney, and he worked the Homicide Unit. And he also does legal analysis for ABC. I'm really excited about having him in because his book is all about crime scenes and the M word. So Courtney will enjoy speaking with him, as will I and all of you. We may be able to gain some insights into this whole world that we talk about and has become a cottage industry in America, of course, and that's the world of true crime. Before I leave, I know it is a hot political season. Before I leave the topic of Donald Trump and the watches is what made me think of this. As I was reading about how the watches are actually made in China, probably with the, super cheap materials, and it's all another grift, I remembered a story that Charlie Sheen told to Graham Norton. And it was about a gift that Donald Trump gave Charlie Sheen, I believe, for his wedding. But I don't have to remember the story because Tony has the story ready to go. This, so in keeping with the Trump watch, there's never been anything like this. You won't believe how great this is. You won't believe, etc. And so in the shadow of the new Trump watches, we share this story that Charlie Sheen told to Graham Norton.
Now, I would say, slightly surprised that Piers Morgan's doing it, because I don't know if you know, he's a big Donald Trump supporter. And I know you're not a fan.
I'm really not. No, I am reminded of a time about 5 years ago. I was at a dinner with my ex-wife Brooke and her family and this and that. And about halfway through, I noticed Donald staring at my watch. And so he started saying, listen, I'm sorry that I wasn't invited to your wedding, this and that, or I'm sorry I can't make your wedding. And I think I didn't invite you. So he says, but I want to give you an early wedding gift as a gesture from me and Melania. And she doesn't say a word. She's very sweet and very pretty, but just kind of sits there,
Yeah.
Anywho, So he says, these are platinum diamond Harry Winston, and he pulls off his cufflinks, and he gives them to me. And so I'm like, oh, gosh, Mr. Trump, you really shouldn't do this. He goes, no, it's the least I can do, and, have a great marriage and all that. Little did he know. So smash cut to about 6 months later, I had some jewelry getting appraised at the house, and she finished and was leaving. And I said, oh, yeah, there's another couple of pieces that I have that I'm very curious about. Would you mind appraising these? She said, no, what are they? I said, well, I explained the dinner and this and that. And these are from Donald Trump, Harry Winston, flawless D's, platinum. She took the loop, spent about 4 seconds and kind of recoiled from it, much like people do from Trump. And so she says, in their finest moment, this is cheap pewter and bad zirconias. And they're stamped Trump. And I just thought, what does this really say about the man? That he said, here's like a great wedding gift, and it's just a bag of dog shit, Now, is that the laughter I can hear coming from across the pond at our country about this charlatan?
It's quite. Listen, it's scary times all over the place.
It really is.
But you're having very scary times. Yeah.
But I have faith that good and decent people will make the right choice, and the circus will leave town before it contaminates the Oval Office.
All right, there you have it. But I love that story. That I want you to have these. It's just like, wow, unreal, really wild. So that's the word on Trump. Now, I do have time. I've got a moment or two, I believe, Tony, to do a little law and disorder. So I'm going to do it. We keep an eye on things going on in the court. We keep an eye on things going on in the street. We keep an eye on things. We do it in a segment called Law and Disorder.
In the criminal justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law. You're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
The world's longest-serving death row inmate, 88-year-old former boxer, acquitted of the 1966 murders that he was convicted of in Japan.
How long has he been in jail?
Hamakeda's 91-year-old sister, Hideko, who's long advocated for her brother's acquittal, seen celebrating with him outside the court after this verdict. It is an insane miscarriage of justice. He was initially convicted of murdering his employer at the miso soybean paste factory where he worked. He was granted a retrial in 2014 and was released from prison after DNA evidence surfaced that called into question the reliability of his initial conviction. There was a debate central to the retrial case of purported bloodstains on 5 items of clothing found in a tank used for making miso. And prosecutors argued that the clothing belonged to Hamakada. The ex-boxer's lawyers argued the evidence had been planted and that stains on clothing would not stay red for such an extended period of time after the incident. Well, this past week, within the last week, the judge presiding over the retrial agreed with the defense that the bloodstains would not remain reddish on clothing after being soaked in miso paste for more than a year. That, with the DNA evidence, was enough to reverse the conviction. But sadly, again, as mentioned, he is 88 years old.
So he's been in jail for 60 years of his life?
Yeah.
Wow.
Glenn Ray Simmons, the longest serving inmate to be declared innocent of a crime is suing the city of Edmond, Oklahoma, and a former police detective following his exoneration. He was on death row, spent nearly 50 years on death row, now is suing for $7 million. And in Oklahoma City has agreed to pay more than $7 million to him after his exoneration. He was the longest-serving inmate to be declared innocent of a crime. The Edmond City Council voted without comment on Monday to settle this lawsuit filed by Glenn Ray Simmons, Glynn Ray Simmons. He's 71 years old. And the statement, Mr. Simmons spent a tragic amount of time incarcerated for a crime he did not commit, although he will never get that time back. This settlement with Edmond will allow him to move forward with his life. And again, there is an Oklahoma City detective who also investigated the robbery and the shooting, and that lawsuit remains pending. So he settled with the town, the city of Edmond, Oklahoma, but not yet with the detectives. The mayor of New York, as mentioned by Kim, he is hip deep in it in New York. And I don't know if you covered the cell phone situation, Kim. Did you mention it?
I mentioned cell phone outages, but not as in regards to Mayor Adams.
No. In Mayor Adams' case, he had a cell phone that he surrendered to authorities. You know, remember they raided his place. They also raided the homes and offices of some of his constellation of political connections. And he gave those phones up without any kind of issue. But as it turns out, he changed his cell phone password just one day before the FBI seized his electronic devices. He says he did that in order to preserve the contents of his phone for the investigation.
Oh, that's nice.
Only problem is he can't remember the password.
What? My bad. I'm sorry. Forgot the password.
Yeah. So a federal judge would have to sign off on a search warrant before federal IT guys could try to crack into the locked device. And it's unclear whether they'll be able to pull it off. But that is the continuing saga of the mayor of New York and the cell phone for which he has forgotten the password.
I don't blame him for forgetting. I mean, I've set a password and then the next day forgotten it. So
Sure.
maybe it happens.
It does happen. Sometimes it doesn't even take me a full day to forget the password.
See? There you go.
The UFC's parent company is agreeing to a $375 million settlement in a class action lawsuit brought by former fighters. They allege anti-competitive practices against those fighters. The agreement disclosed in a filing by TKO, that's UFC's parent company, to the Securities and Exchange Commission of the U.S., and it will settle all claims for the aggregate amount of $375 million. Aggregate is a ding word. The suit was originally filed in 2014 by a retired fighter and then picked up additional athletes. The initial athletes had fought for the UFC between 2010 and 2017, according to reports. This class action began to pick up steam, and the 9-figure settlement is there, but it may not be the end of UFC litigation. There continues to be a lot of question about various practices at the UFC. And finally, I will leave you with this, and then we'll get to True Crime Corner. New evidence is claiming that Google, Microsoft, Meta, and Amazon could very well be listening to you on your devices.
What? Of course they are. Absolutely they are.
Companies want to know what potential customers are searching for online. They use that information. They can target each internet user with an ad for a product or service that, of course, is relevant to what they're looking for. But people don't always perform online searches for everything that they want, right? And listening to potential customers is another way that they can begin to market to you. And so Cox Media Group pitched an idea to potential advertising partners, according to a report from 404 Media. And they say that the pitch deck included active listening as a way to target advertising based on smart devices like smartphones, smart speakers, and smart TVs. And so they said in their sales pitch, this is a great way for you to market to those that you're not reaching right now with pure search. And so, look, as Kim says, yeah, I know, it makes sense. Of course, we're talking about something, and then it shows up, as an ad.
Happens all the time.
Yeah, but this suggests that it's actually an active listening, which is pitched and adopted by Meta, by Amazon, by Google, and Microsoft. So, how do you feel about that? And is it legal for our phones to listen to us? Exactly. I mean, on some level, this would appear to be kind of a breach of what we understand to be privacy, right? But on another level, we've grown so used to it, witness the fact that Kim goes, yeah, no kidding. I mean, it has to be that way, that maybe it'll be a meh at the end. There should be a way to opt out of that at very minimum.
There totally should be. You should be able to, because, it's not just, I know they're listening for marketing reasons, but what if you were involved in something, you're having sexy time, or you were involved in a crime? I don't know, things you don't want people listening to.
Who is having that conversation?
Yeah.
Not that there's a lot of that going on over here, but I'm just saying, I don't want Google to know everything.
Right.
People listening to me yell at my children, come on.
Yeah.
There's a reason that this place is fun.
That is Law and Disorder.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
Emma's got a lot of stuff going on at her house.
The Mark Thompson Show.
She's yelling at her kids. She's got sexy time going. She's got, gosh, just no wonder I can never get a hold of her.
Life unfolding over here, Mark,
Yeah,
I blame you.
All right, probably my fault on some level. All right, a big shout out to Kathleen Bryant.
Big shout out.
$19.99, $20 super sticker. Wow, great way to support the show, and we so appreciate it. And the Uprights. What up, Uprights?
Big shout out.
The Uprights are smashing you with their iron rod of cash. Wow.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
Thank you, Uprights, for a $10 super
Big
sticker.
shout out.
Ray, wait a minute. Is that right? Ray? Now, what is that?
Ray. I don't know what type of funding that is, but it's not dollars.
Tony, it's not dollars. We just got 50 of something. We don't know if they're dollars. Can you
Thanks, Tony.
Can you Google it and find out what that?
Google it.
Yeah. We've just
But thank you for that. That's so nice.
We've received a flurry of love.
Yeah.
And that's really what I'm used to. I get little flurries of love in my life. And then Tom gun. My favorite gun is the Tom gun. How about it?
Big shout out.
Big shout out. $50, man.
Yeah.
That is so cool. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you so much.
And thank you so much, Tom God.
Thank you so much.
Now, Tony, what is the answer? I don't hear Tony, but
You're
I'm sure.
You're muted, Tony.
There we go. Filipino peso.
Oh.
Filipino peso, $50 or 50 Filipino pesos.
Big shout out.
Big shout out. I have no idea how much money that is, but it doesn't matter. We appreciate you. We appreciate you. Shout out to my Filipino brothers and sisters. I love it. Calvin Wong, the shadow producer of this show, saying he's pledging 50 Trump coins made of tin. Well, thank you very much.
Big shout out.
And Ricky acknowledges.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah. Wow. Very good. Peso to dollar, divide by 20. Everybody's got the answer. It's about 89 cents. No, Peso to dollar, divide by 20. Look, it doesn't matter the amount. Who are you people? It's about 18 hundredths of a U.S. dollar. Wow. Well, I don't know. It still seems like a lot of money to me. So, is Matt on board? Oh, if we've got Matt, we're ready to go. Okay. Are you okay with your level? It's too loud. Okay. Yeah, what is this nonsense? What do you Courtney has just entered the studio. Are you okay now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now it's good. Yeah.
Before I bring on Matt, and we have to sort of behave because we have a guest, is there anything you'd like to say as a result of, some notion you have, Courtney?
Like in general or
yeah, just in
around
general.
true crime?
We went to a lovely concert over the weekend.
We went to a great concert over the weekend.
We went to Lucinda Williams.
Yeah. And did
Mike
you tell
Campbell.
everybody about Mike Campbell?
What about him?
Well, that you didn't know who he was.
So I'm so sorry. Matt's waiting, but Matt, I promise we'll give you a lot of love and a lot of attention and plug the hell and have a link to your book. But I'll just tell you this: this is how I really am such a retail consumer of music. I don't know. So I love Lucinda Williams. Okay, and she's kind of a what would you call bluesy country rock, country, sort of that, and. She's playing with Mike Campbell. Now, Mike Campbell, so we're like, should we stay for Mike Campbell?
Yeah, because she played an hour,
Yeah.
and then they were like setting up for a while for Mike Campbell.
And this is how, and I'm just being open about my stupidity. And I there's something freeing about telling you how stupid I am.
I don't think this is a first for the audience.
Yeah, but so I said, let's stick around a little while and figure out Mike Campbell and maybe Mike Campbell will be good. Okay, there's Lucinda Williams. She doesn't look like that anymore. She's a kind of an older lady now, but
it's a good picture though.
A really good picture, and she's terrific. So Mike Campbell, do you guys know who she is? Who he is? Mike Campbell. Mike Campbell. And thank you, Brian. You know this. He is a legend, Mike Campbell. And I'm sitting there going, should we stick around? Mike Campbell, he founded the Heartbreakers with Tom Petty. He is like half of the Heartbreakers. So you've got Tom Petty and you got Mike Campbell. And he wrote more huge songs than you could ever imagine. I mean, he's insane. And so after the concert, thank you. I go home, and now I haven't been able to listen to anything but the great Mike Campbell. And he's also a guitarist of tremendous virtuosity. So he actually sat in with Fleetwood Mac on tour when Lindsey Buckingham left and was unable to tour with them. He's unreal. I'd fly to go see him. He's so good.
He was so good.
Yeah.
And then they played together.
Yes.
After he played for an hour with his band.
Yeah.
The Dirty Knobs.
Yeah. It was really great.
It was great. It was a lot of fun.
That was our big weekend. All right. Now, I'm not going to make Matt Murphy wait any longer.
No, we've got murder to cover.
Virtuosity is a ding word. You're right. Okay. We do indeed. So thank you, Courtney, for being here. And I promise you that...
The Mark Thompson Show.
No more delays. On Mondays, we like to do it. Courtney is here, my other half. She has an abiding interest in something that apparently all of America has an abiding interest in. It is the world of true crime. This is True Crime Corner.
Let's pay a visit to Mark's True Crime Corner.
This is not a good neighborhood. I'm scared.
Now, here's your host, Mark Thompson.
And we're joined by Courtney, and that good-looking gentleman that you see in the on the upper right box is the senior deputy attorney. Who's the former senior deputy district attorney, and involved in the homicide unit. Also, the ABC News legal analyst, and he has written a book. It's the Book of Murder. He is Matt Murphy, everybody.
Yeah.
Now, I should say it's a prosecutor's journey through love and death is the subheading. And you can see how Matt Murphy could offer a whole new perspective on that which we talk about here every week.
Definitely.
Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, this is really a world, and it must be on some level for you, just in general, kind of remarkable to watch the way this world of murder investigations and true crime has exploded over the last 20 years.
Sure has. And it's, from my perspective, I think it's a good thing. I have some ideas why that's happening, but it sure is interesting to be a part of it.
Now, your area of work is Southern California, Laguna Beach, Newport Beach, Costa Mesa. These are Orange County is the area. And so you saw, I would imagine, through this period, all kinds of different sorts of murder investigations take place. What would be the thing, if I can, and then Courtney, I'll shut up and I'll let you talk to Matt.
Finally.
Yeah. What would be the thing that we might be most surprised by that, that those of us who kind of take this in on a retail basis may not really be aware of?
So Orange County does things a little bit differently, Mark. What you see on TV is you see this assembly line approach to murder, which is the way most DA's offices do it, where one DA will review the case, the detectives investigate on their own, then they put it on somebody's desk, and then one DA reviews it, another does the preliminary hearing, and it goes to somebody else for the trial. Orange County is a little different. It's a vertical system. So what happens when you go into a specialized unit like Homicide is you get assigned a patch or a part of the county. So my cities were Newport Beach, Laguna, Newport, and Irvine, or Newport, Laguna, Irvine, and Costa Mesa, sorry. And they, any murder that happens in those cities are automatically assigned to me for the 17 years I was there. So I would roll out with my investigator in the middle of the night, walk through the scenes. Right after we'd file charges, when it was appropriate to do so, I'd meet with the family. I'd give them my personal cell. And the word vertical means basically it's my case, and I would follow it all the way up. I decide when there's enough evidence, who to charge. And so you get this really good, constructive working relationship with your detectives and the cities, and you do one murder case after another. And in places like Newport, murders are pretty rare, but when they happen, they tend to be kind of twisted and rather spectacular. So, I saw some really interesting stuff and decided to share some of that in my book.
Yeah, the book looks super intriguing, and we had a link to it before. We'll have a link under this video, the Book of Murder. It's interesting, too, you talk about these cases. Two things jumped out at me, when you give the victim's family and those who are critical to the case, your personal cell phone. I mean, I think that just speaks volumes for who you are and the connection you must feel to victims. And the other thing that jumps out at me is just looking at your track record. I mean, you never lost a case, I don't think.
Well, I lost a couple of misdemeanors badly back when I first started my first bar fight.
No, I'm talking about as a homicide prosecutor.
Yeah, sorry, those misdemeanors still sting. When I started in homicide, you work up. So Orange County, it takes years before they give you anything really heavy. And then I went to sexual assault first for 4 years. So I had a pretty good wealth of experience trial-wise under my belt before I got to homicide. And then that system I explained, where you decide what charges are going to be on your cases, you really shouldn't be losing too many because you're there from the very beginning. You don't control the investigation, but you can certainly guide it in a way to ensure the constitutional rights of the defendant and to make sure things are done right to the greatest degree that you can. So by the time you're in there in front of a jury, you should be winning most of those. And the numbers look good, but it should work that way most of the time. So I never lost a homicide.
You're, I think, quite modest to kind of put it in that context, because I read all the time about these guys skating, who shouldn't. I mean, it seems almost every day that I open the paper, I'm reading about these investigations and trials that go awry. When you talk about all of these different kinds of crimes, I mean, these sex crimes and these murders, I can't even watch the, which one is the sex crime one? The Law and Order SVU?
Yeah, SVU.
I can't even watch it, man. I can't, and it takes a special both empathy on your part, because you're obviously sympathetic and empathetic to those involved, but it also must you have to compartmentalize, I would think, because otherwise you'll get, you'd be like me and unable to even, I can't go and I can't look at the crime scene. I mean, it would be antithetical to what you're doing, to your strategy as a prosecutor. How do you reconcile those? Is what I'm asking.
Yeah, and the answer is not very well for me. I was really bad at doing exactly what you're talking about, and I talk about that a little bit in the book. You get into homicide, and I rotated in when I was 33, and so I was real young, and I didn't have the mental bandwidth to be able to do that balance that so many of my colleagues were able to do, where they're like doing Little League on the weekends and awesome husbands and fathers and all that, and then being really good trial lawyers at the same time. I kind of went all in on the trial work, and so I surfed a lot to try to balance it out. Sometimes that works. Sometimes all you do is sit in the water and obsess about your cases. But it's interesting right now, Mark. Like, writing a book like that after I retired from the office in 2019, it was almost cathartic in a way to just sort of go through that and think through it. Trying to get a little more balance going in my life these days. But yeah, back when I was in the unit, I was all in. You're on call 24/7. You get that call in the middle of the night, and you got to go. You go down with your investigator, and you're there at 3 a.m, shivering, waiting for the search warrants to come back from the night judge. And but the truth is, I loved it, and I still miss it every day, as twisted as that might sound. It was absolutely fascinating to get into that. And yes, I always gave my personal cell phone out because I wanted the families to know that there was at least, and my team was composed of wonderful people that really cared, and I wanted the families to know that. So,
no, that's so cool. I mean, it's just it does reflect your connection to things. And I would think that what drew you to it is when you say you miss it, and when you talk about it, I can tell you kind of speak about it with a zeal that is reflected, I'm sure, in the work you did. And that must have been associated with wanting to right this wrong as best you could, like bring some justice to this situation. That has to be an insanely motivating factor.
Well, you're absolutely right. And look, when you go to the scene as a prosecutor and you see that person either dead on a kitchen floor, dead in a ditch, or on the autopsy table, and then you meet with that person's mother, and fathers and husbands and all that. But I don't know what it was about the moms, but the moms got to me every single time. And when you're up at 2 a.m. in the middle of trial and you got 3 more hours of work to do, but you're exhausted, that motivates you quite a bit, and you connect with those poor people. And most people don't know how important that sense of justice really is to a family that has lost a loved one to murder, unless, God forbid, they wind up there themselves. You know what I mean? And I really I don't know. It's kind of hard to. It sounds cheesy to say, but I was really for my first murder scene, I kind of felt like I belonged there, as weird as that sounds. Working with those detectives, late into the night, and you see so many people behind the scenes, which was another reason for me writing the book, that don't get the credit. And law enforcement has been going through some tough times these days. A lot of detectives and police officers, as we know, and we've all experienced that. The vast majority of them really are some of the hardest working, most dedicated people I've ever met in my life. And of course, there's bad cops too, and nobody hates a bad cop more than a good one. But I wanted to write the book to talk about some of the forensic scientists that are behind the scenes, and like my paralegal and the detectives and the DA investigators that restored my faith just a little bit. You start with the worst thing you can see, which is some poor dead child or somebody's child, whether an adult or an actual child, and you immediately see these professionals showing up in the middle of the night without complaint, these detectives that are up for 18 hours straight without complaining. And I wanted to share some of that in the book to kind of give people the behind the scenes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I note that I've been dominating with all these questions. Rain says in the chat, isn't this Courtney's segment? I am sorry, Courtney.
No. I mean, I think you're asking really important questions, and these are questions that I would have asked as well. And the book does go into different, I don't know how to say it, like the taxonomy, like the different types of murders, right? And gang related and sort of wealthy family financial beneficiaries, sort of, that's their motivation. And it was really interesting to read about these different cases and the different profiles of these suspects and the way that you would prosecute them. Even the cold cases is really interesting as well, because you've got a case that happens and then over time you revisit it, and within that revisit some of the evidence. So.
Well, Matt, you've worked on some high-profile cases. I mean, maybe you could. I know one that
the dating game killer. Bill McLaughlin was another case that I was familiar with, and it was really interesting for you to outline that, especially because, well, now I'm talking too much, but that the murder happened in 1994, and I believe that you arrested them in like 2009, the two suspects. Yeah, so. That as well, 15 years later. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I volunteered to be one of the two cold case deputies in the unit after a little while, and that was fascinating. I mean, working it behind the scenes is truly every bit as fascinating as it looks at from the outside. You know, you dust off these old boxes in the storage room of these police departments, and you roll up your sleeves and you get into it. And those cold cases, there's two kinds really. You get the DNA hit kind, you know, that, the answers are finally delivered to the family and you know who did it. But there's another kind of cold case, and that's when the family or the detectives always knew who did it. But there was, the DA at the time felt like there just wasn't enough evidence. And those ones are, in a way, they're the most interesting to work because it's a new set of eyes and you're trying to find something in addition to what was sort of refused at the time. And if you get a bunch of pros on that and they're dedicated to it, you can almost always find that hit, test that one piece of evidence that wasn't tested back in the day, or, and the satisfaction there is you've got a family, especially with the nice victims, that was denied justice. And you got some killers that got away with it. And there is an immense satisfaction that comes along with reaching back in time and having your detectives handcuff somebody that murdered somebody back in the day and got away with it. And I was very, very privileged and fortunate to have worked on a few of those. But yeah, there's different kinds. A child abuse death is totally different than a gang murder. And fortunately, we let most of those, stay with the gang unit. But a serial killer is a totally different kind of case than, a murder for money or a conspiracy, which is all different than a 7-Eleven robbery gone wrong. So they each wind up with the death of a human being, but the background and the investigation you have to do is so different. It's almost kind of a different crime in a way. And you start recognizing patterns and working with your detectives to go back and look for the things like, the serial killers collect trophies, for example, and people that conspire to murder for money usually can't wait to spend it, so they usually have appointments made with real estate agents and stuff before the murder even happens. So you learn along the way, and it takes a long time, but I loved it, and like I said, I still miss it every day.
Yeah.
The Dirty John case he was involved in, I believe, as well. Isn't that right?
Yeah. Yeah, Dirty John. That was fascinating. That was one where it was a homicide that happened in Newport, and the investigation led us to sometimes it's the job of the prosecutor to exonerate somebody from any sort of criminal wrongdoing. We got to do that in that case, and it was such a fascinating story. I called my friend Chris Goffard with the LA Times, and I'm like, dude, you gotta take a look at this one. And I thought he'd write an article about it, and instead he turned it into this international sensation, for which I should probably say I got all the sliders I could eat at the premiere, and that was it.
Didn't make you a wealthy man. Yeah.
It did not. Gave me a full stomach for one night though. But yeah, I did. The Dating Game Killer was one of mine. Anna Kendrick has a new movie coming out on Netflix on that, so I got to consult a little bit on that, which was super cool. Meeting somebody that famous and that Hollywood talented, and that was really interesting for me. I also was the Orange County prosecutor on the Golden State Killer case, although I'm going into that in my next book that we're already working on the proposal for. But yeah, I got to do some pretty high profile cases. The Samantha Runyon case that you might remember. Tom and Jackie Hawks, that couple that got tied to the anchor and thrown off their boat. Yeah, there it is. Anna Kendrick, who, by the way, is every bit. She is so nice in real life. And I'll tell you what, that actor was, in my view, absolutely phenomenal. That guy nailed it, and he just has this. I've been lucky enough to see this movie ahead of time. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that or not, but that guy did such a good job of playing Rodney Alcala. Rodney represented himself, so I personally had to deal with him. My trial partner and I, Gina Satriano from the LA DA's office. So he represented himself, a la Ted Bundy, and so we'd have to go into court and talk to him, and as if he was another lawyer, because technically he was. And it was just fascinating. There's my boy right there. That's Rockin' Rodney in trial. Why he grew his hair out, I don't know, but he did. He was a certified Mensa level genius. He had a genius level IQ. Grew up in a loving home. The guy was a varsity letterman in high school. Worked on the yearbook committee. Had girlfriends. Had friends. And that's one of the fascinating things I learned in Homicide is that serial killers. I thought they were all like Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs, and like creepy guy in a van. Turns out they tend to be handsome. They tend to be intelligent. They tend to be arrogant. And they often have a complete dearth of any sort of real abuse, believe it or not. It's sort of contrary to popular myth. A lot of them do it because they like to do it. And,
So as he would present to society, there'd be nothing about him, even in his adult life, that seems like there's a screw loose?
That is exactly right, Mark. And that's one of the things that makes these guys, in my experience, even scarier than what we see in the movies, because they, the example I've used before is they could be in front of you in line in Starbucks and you'd never know. We want to think that, the hairs on the back of our neck would stand up, or we would be able to identify them. And the reality is they blend in perfectly. I think that's why Jack the Ripper got away with it, because he was able to go into Whitechapel, London, and blend in perfectly. And that's the real, that's the way they usually are. And I think that's even more fascinating. You look at a recent arrest, Rex Heuermann in New York, and of course he's presumed innocent, but that's the Go-Go Beach murder, which is fascinating to me because that guy had a way. He was wrapping his victims in burlap. He figured out a way to defeat a lot of the modern forensic techniques used to identify people. And they actually made that with mitoDNA, where they were hairs, not nuclear DNA, which is really, it's fascinating if you ever studied serial killers, because, and that guy, he ran an architecture firm, founded and operated an architecture firm in Midtown Manhattan. That's the real thing with these guys is they are, they're genuine psychopaths, tend to be charming, tend to be smart, and that's one of the things that's so interesting. At least
crazy that they have these full lives and they still have time to, stake out of some murder and be a serial killer. Oh my God!
Yep,
crazy.
Yeah.
I don't have enough time for my fantasy football league. These guys are, it's crazy.
It's priorities, really.
Yeah, it's priorities. I see. Anything else for Matt before I'm so intrigued.
I know. Well,
the book sounds really great.
I wanted to ask you about your personal security, and did you ever feel a sense of concern about any of these cases that you prosecuted? And
I had a couple of scary ones. I had a terminally ill father of Skylar De Leon. He was that was the man that was responsible for the murder of Tom and Jackie Hawks off their boat. And his father had a terminal illness, and he'd been to federal prison. And I got what's called a Tarasoff warning. He told his psychiatrist that he wanted to kill me on his way out. So this is a guy with nothing to lose. And that wasn't a threat directly to me, so we couldn't really do anything about it. But I also had the case of Hussein Nairi. That was the guy that wasn't even a murder. They kidnapped a marijuana dispensary owner and sexually mutilated him in the desert. And then he fled back to his native country of Iran, and we extradited him. He escaped from the jail and left my photo on his bunk. So he was in the wind. Wow. And but you know what? The thing is, I didn't, because of that sort of lack of balance in my life, I never got married. I never had kids. And so I didn't really have anybody to protect except for myself, and I think there's a real difference there. It's scary, but not in the same way that it would have been if I had people that I actually, was responsible for, if that makes sense. So you get threats, but got a good lock on my door, and you know, I haven't had any actual issues. But
the Menendez drama that's being played out on Netflix, I think it is. They're retelling the Menendez story. There's a lot of this now. I mean, Courtney and I watch a lot of this stuff where it's dramatic retelling. That O.J. Simpson story, you know, is told again dramatically. And anyway, the Menendez is the latest. It's very popular. It's pretty fascinating because I remember at the time thinking, you know, it's open and shut. As you say, the kids, they killed their, I mean, this is the part that, as you say, they bought a Rolex after they seemed to buy an expensive car, whatever it was, after their parents were murdered. It seemed to me that there weren't any extenuating circumstances that could lead to an acquittal or even questions around their guilt. Still, though, and now this gets to the point that I wanted to ask you as a prosecutor, still, the defense was able to raise the notion that they were victims of abuse in their home, and it led to this. So that's the summary for those who don't know. My question is, what were your impressions, both at the time when this was going down and we were hearing these arguments, and also as you watch these dramatic depictions of these cases that are so well known?
Well, so the Menendez case went down right when I was beginning my career, and I followed it religiously back in the time. And I actually wound up having a case against David Cohen. He was the second prosecutor after they hung it the first time. And as a law clerk, we had Lester Kuriyama. He was one of the original prosecutors on the case. We had one of his cross-examinations of Eric Menendez up actually in the clerk room of the Orange County DA's office as an example of how to do a really good cross-examination. And what has sort of been lost with time, and I see everybody getting really excited about this, and you know, Lyle and Eric Menendez lied over and over and over again. They lied upside down, they lied sideways, they lied diagonally, they lied repeatedly. And this quote unquote new evidence that they're talking about is a letter written by Eric in the time leading up to the shotgun slaying of his mother. And you know, it's like, now we believe him. You know, like, and look, I've done conspiracy cases to kill for money. Leaving a false trail of evidence is always a part of those plans. And these guys couldn't wait to spend the money. And what's interesting to me, and I kind of yell at my TV a little bit these days, watching that stuff. And look, it's not my case. I haven't read through the files. So this is just objectively what I've seen, but through the lens of having prosecuted a bunch of these, is that under California law, if you are motivated in part by revenge or bad blood and, you know, or whatever, but also you're motivated in part by murder for financial gain, you are guilty of the special circumstance of murder for financial gain. And it does. You could have 90%. I was abused as a kid, which I don't believe in their case, actually. And let me just segue into that for a second. I spent 4 years in the Orange County Sexual Assault Unit. I did well over 1,000 child molest cases in my time there, where you're either reviewing or in some way trying those. I have never seen a case, nor have I ever heard of a case, where a bio mom or a biological mother in conjunction with the biological father was sexually abusing 2 teenage boys. Never once have I seen it. Never once have I read about it. And I, considering this information comes from 2 of the biggest liars in California jurisprudence, I don't believe them. Kitty Menendez did not molest her boys. I absolutely don't believe that. And the jury rejected that, I think, twice. So this is one of those things it gets under my skin a little bit, because you've got people who are like, oh, sexual assault is bad. And 32 years later, we have a letter written by one of the guys who lied through his teeth. You know, and from my point of view, the only thing worse than the shotgun slaying of your own mother is coming back later and saying, I did it because she sexually abused me. Sorry, I call BS on that. And look, if they ever got a new trial, I'll tell you this, Mark, I would love to be the prosecutor on their retrial. And I'll tell you what, in front of a rational jury, I'd convict those 2 guys again. So that, not to go down a mini rant there, but it frustrates me, because I spent, a lot of people have been sexually abused. A huge percentage of the population have been the victims of sexual abuse. And the idea that those 2 guys are trying to cash in to gain some sort of status by people who were legitimately abused by their parents. And again, at best, if I'm wrong about all that, these were two adult men who went back knowing that they were going to financially benefit from this and took shotguns to their parents. I'm sorry. I have zero sympathy for them. So those are my thoughts.
No, it's great to have you weigh in on it, because there is a way in which these dramatic retellings can varnish over a lot of the information and facts that either we weren't aware of or that have just been sort of dulled to time, and that's fascinating. It really is. Courtney, anything else from Matt? That's fascinating, though. It really is. I especially since this genre is so hot, more and more cases you've worked on and cases you're familiar with, they're all going to be retold. Not literally all of them, but many of them in these dramatic ways, because they, on some level, they land in such an interesting way with so much of the public that just has this natural curiosity for this genre. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry for the rant, guys. I just that's one of those. It fires me up when I look at that case.
Yeah.
No, I just
I think you have a unique perspective because of your background. Yeah.
Let me just see. Look at sure enough, that Menendez thing brings people out of the woodwork.
Oh, it would, and that's going to upset some of your fans, no doubt.
No.
I stand by every word of that.
Killers lied? No. They may have been psychologically injured by money being thrown at them. That's a sarcastic remark by Blue Spark. Wes says, but Matt, there is a new witness that came forward, an ex-Menudo member that claimed the father molested him on several occasions. So I don't know anything about that. But the point, more than anything, is not about the father molesting anybody. It's about molesting those kids, whether those kids were molested, those two teenage boys, as you say. So, you make a very compelling case for the fact that it's garbage. Anything?
No, I'm incredibly
Matt
grateful
Murphy's,
for you coming today.
He's your dream man.
I know. This is going to be an awkward segue.
The book is The Book of Murder, A Prosecutor's Journey Through Love and Death, Matt Murphy.
Mm-hmm.
And this legendary lawyer writes it all out. And it is available now. In fact, there's a link underneath this video, and there'll be a link underneath the breakout video. And I believe there is there's a website too. Didn't you have it up there?
Yeah, thebookofmurder.com.
Yeah, thebookofmurder.com. Mm-hmm. So we'll have that underneath the video. There it is, the book of it. We have it up, and you can pick it up that way too. Wow, Matt, what an interesting guy you are. You've worked on so many important cases, and the work you've done with all the cases that you've been involved in is so very important for society. My hat's off to you, man. Thebookofmurder.com. Again, we have it up there. We'll have a link under the video. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Yeah, great stuff. Matt Murphy, everybody. Thank you, Courtney.
That's
True Crime Corner for today.
True Crime Corner, only on the Mark Thompson Show.
Wow.
The Mark Thompson Show.
He's good, Courtney. I could see.
I know.
I mean, I'll be perfectly honest. I could see replacing you with Matt Murphy.
I was about to say, I feel the same, Mark. He's dreamy, and he's done a lot of good.
Who is having that conversation?
Well, we may be having it soon, right after the show. I do want to mention that Courtney and I are coming to San Francisco, the San Francisco Fall Show. We're going to this fall show, and we're going to, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It's not expensive. I think you can get a little over $20 a ticket. And sffallshow.org is where you go to get tickets. There it is, the San Francisco Fall Show. It's at Fort Mason.
It's at the Festival Pavilion at Fort Mason. Yeah. It's October 17th through the 20th. Runs about 10 or 11 in the morning to about 5 or 7 at night. There are speakers every day. There are lectures. There's book signing opportunities. There's more than 40 exhibitors that are there at the event, and it brings in people from all over the world, focusing on fine art, architecture, design, fashion. It's really an incredible event. And if you are looking to support the fine art and the art community of San Francisco, this is a great opportunity to do that.
So it's sffallshow.org.
Yep.
And the tickets are at eventbrite.com. Also, you can, I guess, either place. Is that how you do it?
Yeah, you can go to the website or you could go to Eventbrite and search by the San Francisco Fall Show.
San Francisco Fall Show. But we have a discount code.
We have a discount code. So you get 25% off your ticket with the code MARK, all capital letters.
Yeah. M-A-R-K.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we will be there Thursday and Friday.
Which is that'll be what are the dates on that?
This is the 17th and 18th.
Okay.
There's a really interesting lecture about French art and design that I was hoping to go to. And there's a couple incredible speakers over the weekend.
Right.
So it looks wonderful. Izzy's is having a restaurant pop up there. So you can make reservations for Izzy's now. They will be on site. And yeah, we're excited to see
Sandra says,
them.
great. Last time I was at Fort Mason was for the Chocolate Festival.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we missed that. But this
Yeah.
is the fall show. Anyway, you'll hear more about it. We'll talk more about it, but it's coming up in, 2 weeks or something
It's coming up in 2 weeks. The theme of this year, which is the 42nd year of this event, is black and white.
Yeah, but you don't have to wear, there's no dress code or anything.
No.
Because
no.
I'm going to be looking like I'm going to a 49ers game.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'll be the guy who,
Exactly.
how did that guy get in here? So...
Well, I'll be there with Matt, so that's going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, Matt, somebody says, Mark, are you Courtney and Matt's +1? Edward Lee.
Thank you, Edward. He stole the joke from me.
Yeah, great minds.
It's a better joke.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think Courtney wants to replace Mark with Matt Murphy. Yeah, I think exactly.
I mean, this is actually making it easier to to bring this to you, Mark.
Yeah.
So
on Matt's takedown of the Menendez thing. Thanks, Matt. Now I won't bother with the Netflix series. Yeah. Anyway, we'll see you guys at the fall show.
Yeah, we'll see you there.
sffallshow.org. Use the discount code MARK for 25%
25% off.
The Mark Thompson Show.
He was great, that Matt Murphy. Jeez.
Yeah, he's a dreamboat.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really is.
Really
he surfs and he actually paints. I meant to ask him if he needs any help with his fine art career.
Matt Murphy or Anthony Davis? Who is
Courtney
leaving Mark for?
I mean,
is the question. Yeah, I agree, Phineas.
That is a difficult decision.
I am so day-to-day here, if you only knew.
Yeah.
And as an, I guess this is other stuff. I was just trying to pick up stuff in the chat. Anyway.
Yeah. It was good while it lasted, Mark.
Look, I love you. I'll always love you, and I'll miss you. Thanks, Courtney, for True Crime Corner. Yeah, Courtney, thank you.
I know it's been 2 weeks, but it's good to be back. And
that was really great.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Yeah. All right, Courtney, everybody, thank you. Thank you, Courtney. Wow.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Well, I can't believe it, but it's. I feel pretty good about what we did today, though. We had a lot of good video. If you missed it, we had a mashup during the Gary Dietrich conversation of Trump on the stump as he's become more and more desperate, and he's just slinging the wildest stuff on the stump. And we also talked a bit about J.D. Vance and J.D. Vance's remarks that are now, again, making it to the surface. Matt is my new man crush, says San Jose Lola. Yeah. Matt is kind of the sexy dude who is doing work on behalf of truth and justice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's an ABC legal correspondent as well, I believe, or a legal analyst. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he's a
You can see
technical
why.
legal analyst and mind on all this other stuff. You know what I mean? On these movies. So he's quite the... Anyway, pick up his book, The Book of Murder, Matt Murphy. The link is underneath this video. Is there anything else I need to do, Tony? Do I need to do something?
No, I think we're done.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
it.
Yeah, all right. Well, you don't need to be so downcast about it. We will be back tomorrow. Won't we?
David K. Johnston tomorrow on the show, yeah.
Yes, David K. Johnston. I feel like there's somebody else tomorrow also, but I might be wrong.
Jefferson Graham tomorrow.
Jefferson Graham, that's it, of course. Well, we've learned a lot about each other today. We've covered a lot of territory. We've told you the story of two wrongly accused and convicted murderers who were set free decades after they were incarcerated. One of them close to 90 years old, the other in his 70s. And then we told you the stories of those who were rightfully put behind bars after being involved in a dastardly, horrible act of one sort or another. So we've really run the gamut today. And, if I can run that gamut every day, I feel liberated. And now we say farewell.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
The After Party Live with Kim is going on now. And
Out of time. Bye-bye.
tomorrow, David K. Johnston and more. Thanks, everybody, for all the love and support. Till tomorrow. Bye-bye.